Welcome back, everybody. We are the Alter Ego Brothers. I'm Nick. That's Andy. And welcome to 2026. Today, we are reviewing 28 Inches Later, The Bone Zone. Surprise, surprise, I love this movie. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I thought it was just as good as the last one, maybe even a little bit better because it didn't have that wacky ending, and I'm so glad that they chose to not do any of that stuff.
I'm also glad they didn't do all the wacky stuff, and because of that, I'm actually a 10 out of 10 with you, bro. You might be surprised by that, but I was so pleasantly surprised with this movie. I thought all of it was actually incredibly predictable from my end, but I say that meaning the choices they made in the storyline were exactly the choices they needed to make in that storyline, and I just thought it was perfect. So easy 10 out of 10 from me.
Look at us! First review of the year, and we're back at a 10 out of 10, just like 2025.
Exactly, just like Better Man in 2025. Because considering, so just audience, in case you didn't know, 28 years later, the first one that showed last year, I hated that movie. Didn't hate, but I really didn't like a lot of things about it. So it's really shocking for me to do almost a 180 on this entire film with part two, which usually never lives up to the first movie's expectations. So this is, it's kind of weird for me. It's a weird zone. It's the Bone Zone.
You can find out his review of 28 Years Later in our top and bottom 5 of 2025. So what makes this movie so great? Great enough that Andy has changed his ways and got on the 28 Years Later hype train? Well, let's talk about that. What are some differences between the first movie and this movie? And what are the places where this movie just kind of elevates things?
The way it started off, I'm like, perfect. That is a great storyline to get you like interested, being like, what the heck is going on? This is so weird, and it makes you kind of cringe a little bit, but I'm intrigued. And then they start off with the other storyline of the people who are infected. And you see a little bit of that to remind you, okay, here's the infected, here's what's going on with the infected currently. It's like, good idea to remind us what's going on there. And then it gets to the doctor at the Bone Zone and reminds you of what's going on over there. And it really just highlights all three storylines right off the bat, just to reintroduce you and remind you, here's what's happening, here's where we currently are, here's where we're headed. And that was the most perfect start to a movie I've seen in a long time. That was definitely the most perfect start to this movie being a sequel. And from there, they had me just sitting in my chair, man. I was just like, oh, we're in for a good ride then. There's a lot of confidence in this.
I love that they used the same sets for a lot of the scenes that they did, and you could tell that these movies were shot back to back, not only with the release being less than a year later from the first one, but those scenes were just as pristine as we left them in 28 years later. I want more movies to do this and be as consistent as they possibly can, especially with sequels. It really does pay off in the end. And speaking of payoff, the third movie has been greenlit, so we will see an end to this trilogy in probably a couple years' time. So this story is really focusing on Dr. Kelson, played by Ray Fiennes, and the Jimmies. Andy, what did you think of the Jimmies? What did you think of Dr. Kelson?
God, I hate the Jimmies.
Stop! No, just kidding.
Okay. The Jimmies were a creepy character bunch. I didn't even realize when they first named Alfie Jimmy that they were all called Jimmy at the time. That when they told you that later, I was just like, oh, that's so freaking weird. but I love it. And I assume there's some actual like deity thing, religious stuff that actually do relate to that, and that they're called Jimmies.
You're kind of right. It's not a religious thing, but they're dressed like a person named Jimmy Savile, who was a UK TV and radio personality. He had the long blonde hair, he had the track suits, was very big in children's programming. However, it also came out that he was a prolific and awful pedophile. was really bad. Like, don't go dressing as the Jimmies for Halloween. Like, it's not a good look for all of us Americans who aren't familiar with that. Don't dress as Jimmy, please.
Well, let's move on from that part then. Let's talk about the doctor. I loved Ian and Samson's relationship. I think what I loved most about it was the scientific approach that Ian had to trying to work with Samson, and then taking risk at times to try to see behaviors from Samson. That was, that left you kind of like intense at times, but that was also one of the predictable moments for me, being like, this is the bone zone. It's all about Ian in this movie. He's clearly not going to die right away. But I still like to see that they, step by step, introduce those two getting closer and closer together. And I think, too, what I really like about that relationship is Ralph Fiennes just acting in this.
Rafe.
I knew that, too, but I see the name and then I screw it up. Rafe Fiennes. There are times when I see the Voldemort mannerisms in him, reaching out like he does. But aside from that, his tone was just so calming all the time. And later in the movie, when Jimmy mentioned, like, man, it's just really easy talking to you. I really like talking to you. It's like, I like you talking to him. I just like this conversation. Anytime that Rafe has anything to say, I think he portrayed that character just super well, and that's what had me just so intrigued. And we'll probably talk about the ending in a bit, but I can definitely see the direction where they're going with the third movie, and I think it's set up completely perfectly.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the scene of Jimmy and Kelson talking with each other, because up to that point, Jimmy had just kind of been a psychopath and this cult leader. But when you take a step back and you remember that Jimmy is the kid from the very beginning of 28 years later, where he's sitting in the room, they're watching Teletubbies, and then all hell breaks loose, right? And he's the only person to escape the house, and he watches his mom and his sister and all these people get eaten and infected. And so he runs to the church across the street where his dad is the pastor, and he's like, Dad, we need to do something. But his dad is like, nah, this is Judgment Day, man. This is what we've been waiting for. So anybody who's not been raptured deserves to be here. And he hides Jimmy under the floor. Jimmy watches his dad get infected, thus becoming, quote unquote, the devil. Right? He sees him get infected, puke up all this blood. He turns red. He leads all the other infected out of the church because they're all just crazed and ready to attack. And he thinks that he's lived through the rapture and he's been left behind. He's like 8 years old at this point, right? He is left just fucked up. And so he builds this mythology of, oh, my dad must be Satan because I was in the church and I didn't get raptured with other people. So I must have a higher calling here left on earth where all hell's broken loose. And he starts this cult and he thinks that he's communicating with the devil in his brain, but it's all just this trauma and psychosis. And then we get back to where he's talking with Dr. Kelson, and wow, one of the best uses of mistaken identity I've ever seen. They think he's the devil. And then they have this sit down and it's like, oh, so you're not the devil, right? No, I'm not the devil. Why would I be the devil? Oh, shit. I really need you to be the devil, man. Wow, you have no idea how bad I need you to be the devil. And they have this very calm yet confident conversation about, here's where I'm at as a kid who grew up in this new world. And Dr. Kelson's like, I mean, yeah, if you're threatening my life, sure, I'll be the devil for you. I'll do that. And boy, does he. Which brings us to the last point here. I want to talk about the music. I want to talk about that ending scene, which was just so fun. Take it away.
I don't think you can talk about the ending scene without talking about the visual effects. The visual effects were really good. That moment at the Bone Zone, when he's doing this fire dance, and he's got these freaking things doing like the sparks and stuff. I'm like, that is the coolest fucking shit. And he's got this like black rubber robe or whatever it is, this flame retardant robe so that he doesn't catch on fire, to also just look kind of like devilish and sinister. This is just beautiful how they incorporated all of this. I thought too, when you want to talk about music, normally I'm a little bit skeptical when they use just generic songs that you hear on the radio, but you can do it well if you do it with a real purpose. And the purpose of this was, I think, to set up the 666 song by Iron Maiden at the end for the Bone Zone. So it had a reason for that music, and it just fit so perfectly. But I think what set it up most excellently was Ralph Fiennes just kind of halfway singing it at times, or not singing that, but singing songs in general throughout the whole movie. And like, to the point where like if you just listen to him, you have no idea what the fuck you couldn't tell what song he's singing. But then there was one point where they lined up his singing with a song. I'm like, oh, now I hear it here. Like, but I couldn't recognize it. The way Rafe approached it was just excellent. I thought it was really cool. And I think that set up that whole scene way more than people are probably going to realize.
And first upside down camera angle of 2026.
Oh yeah, you could mention that. I did actually think about that. The upside down camera angle when they had Samson walk in and put horns on him and made him look like the devil. I'm like, I'm curious, like, was that forethought well ahead of time when filming, or was that thought of at the moment? Maybe it's probably thought well ahead of time, but that looks so cool.
So that particular set of imagery I want to talk about real quick, because we do see something similar at the beginning of the film from Samson's point of view. We see that he's hunting a human and he's like screaming for his life, right? But then we see a brief glimpse of what Samson sees through his eyes, and he sees an infected and he's on the ground screaming. So a big theme of this whole movie seems to be this thought of psychosis and how the infected see the world versus how somebody like Dr. Kelson sees the world versus Jimmy and Spike. So we're really comparing Samson and Jimmy at this point in time. So Samson saw the infected, and that seems to be the crux of what he's trying to do when he's out hunting. And then we see Jimmy see the devil. And that's what he's been trying to do this whole time. He's been waiting and waiting for Satan to come. And when he's finally crucified upside down on the cross, he finally sees that come through. But he's always viewed that as the infected. So it's a real symbology there between what somebody who grew up in this world thinks of the infected versus someone like Dr. Kelson, who still has his humanity, who is still able to remember some parts of what life was like before all this and how he interacted with Samson and treated him like a person and got through to him like a person. It was all very beautiful. Nia DaCosta was the director for this movie, and I think she did just an absolutely fantastic job. They couldn't have teed up the third movie even better. But as always, don't just take our word for it. Let's see what the internet has to say. So as far as audience scores go on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, we have a combined score of 8.5 out of 10. And then on the critic side, astonishingly, we have an 8.5 out of 10. So that's really positive for this movie, like going into it. We've done enough of these videos that you usually see a nice big gap in between those two. So to have it all just line up, it's telling you that it may be dump month, but this is not a dump month movie. This is a 1 out of 10 review, and it says, gross, gross, gross. So much unnecessary gore and violence to the point where we left the theater and got a refund. We have loved the other movies, but this one was disgusting and evil. The Jimmies are absolutely disgusting, and anytime they're on screen, I basically had to look away. I have never left a movie in my life, but this was the first. Just going by how they spelled theater in this, I think this is a person from the UK, and I think the Jimmies are gonna rub that crowd just even more in a disgusting way because of all of the background stuff. But also, there's a very slight nod in what the Jimmies do. They call it charity. And another thing that this Jimmy Savile character was known for was his charity. And that just kind of gives you like an extra layer of grossness on top of what they were doing. But that'll be it for us. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, we're just two regular dudes
doing regular reviews.